Human trafficking is one of the largest organized crimes. It is a billion-dollar industry.
I got to know that the state government doesn't like you much. Is it true?
Sort of, yeah.
Which is the youngest victim?
I think my youngest survivor would be about 6 or 7 years old.
6 years old.
We're talking about a large number of young girls and even boys who are being forced into not only commercial sexual exploitation but who are being forced into bonded labor. And there used to be girls as little as 12 who would be bound to the beds by chains and who would be sold to customers as little as 100 rupees per night. It was very heartbreaking, and those cases are particularly a bit difficult to handle as well.
Welcome to the show, Joanna. I got to know that the state government doesn't like you much. Is it true?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Maybe they don't like me very much, yes.
But why is that?
So I am an anti-human trafficking lawyer. So part of my work is to hold the state accountable for lapses in the work that they do or they haven't done for trafficking survivors. So I don't think that makes them big fans of my work or me, actually.
So lapses as in could you simplify the whole process and the whole concept for the viewers? Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. That's an interesting question. So for example, investigations in human trafficking cases, right? Many a times we see that in human trafficking cases, investigations are not done properly. There is lack of will. There is lack of resources to investigate properly. My specialty lies in picking up this cases like these and asking for further investigation, which often means that I am fighting against the police and against the state to hold the state accountable for failure to protect victims or failure to protect their rights to a fair and speedy investigation.
Also, I got to know that you make sure that victims they get compensated well for
Yes.
justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the work that I do. Part of what I do is also ensuring victim compensation for survivors of human trafficking. The highest amount ever awarded to a victim of human trafficking in the state of West Bengal has been 9 lakhs, which is till date the highest ever.
So, are you the reason behind it?
It was one of my cases, yes. So I am really proud of that case, but I think I'm also very proud of the survivor for coming forward. It would not have actually been possible without the survivor's participation in that case to kind of believe and trust the process that it will come through.
Right. So, now that we're talking about lapses and compensation, so how many days ऐसे कितने लंबे टाइम तक ऐसे होता है कि विक्टिम्स को कॉम्पनसेशन हुआ नहीं है, मिला नहीं है उनको डिजर्व्ड अमाउंट?
सो एक तो होता है कि कॉम्पनसेशन ऑर्डर मिल जाता है. देयर इज अ लॉट मोर अवेयरनेस अबाउट 5-10 years ago. There was very little awareness that victims have rehabilitative rights. There is this in fact, when I say victims also, we need to check ourselves. I mean, I also need to check myself, because we very often when we look at them, we often see them from a victim perspective. We forget
True.
that they are survivors. We forget that they have a journey that they have come across. So when that shift takes place from victim to survivorhood, when they require rehabilitative services, they require reintegration into society, and that only will happen when we start looking at them from the lens of survivors,
Not victims.
and not victims only. And so, for instance, for the last, say, 10 years ago, there was very little awareness, but over the last 5 years, there has been a lot of push among the system, amongst a lot of social workers, amongst a lot of lawyers, amongst a lot of collaborative organizations coming together, asking the state government, asking the system, the public justice system as a whole, pushing for victims' rights, survivor rights to be implemented, especially compensation,
Hmm.
so that compensation is given to survivors of violence, so that they are able to stand on their own feet after a traumatic event,
True.
and that they are rehabilitated into society. So ऐसा होता है कि कभी कभी there are times where you get an order really fast. Last year we were doing this case, I was doing this case where more than 800 days had passed, 800 900 days had
That's
passed.
more than 3 years.
Yeah.
Like almost 3 years.
Yes, and despite law saying that compensation should be given within 30 days, not and it was really sad. So we started writing letters. I started writing letters to the state government, to the state legal services, to the national legal services, and we got a response from the national legal services. And after 800 900 days of waiting, the national legal services actually intervened, and we got the compensation within 1 week. So that period of 800 and 900 days, despite law saying that it should happen within 30 days, it should be dispersed within 30 days, it only further traumatizes the
True.
survivor herself, because you mean you are an abject poverty, you're exploited because of your situations, and then you're made to wait for so long.
Yeah,
It is
that you would-
nothing, it is nothing but the system re-victimizing you. And so one of the desires, or one of the push that we want to do is to have the victims, have the public justice system respond to survivors' needs for compensation at the earliest possible.
So how do you do that? Like this sounds to me like, I don't know, some superhero thing. That
Yeah.
you wear a cape and you just fight injustice.
No, I do wear a cape. It's a black gown. But no, I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. There are two aspects to it. I work with a very good team. I'm surrounded by very, very professional, very down to earth, very fiery lawyers, social workers, and other like-minded people who are peer colleagues who kind of do not take no for an answer, who want to push the system. That's one. But I think more than all, it's the survivors themselves. So when you see the survivors coming forward, and it's easy, right, to forget them in this whole justice fight,
True.
because cases can take so long, compensation nahi mil raha hai un log ko. There are family situations that are just very, very disheartening, very heartbreaking. I'll share a case example with you. On last Thursday, a human trafficker and his partner were convicted by a court. They were sentenced to 6 years of imprisonment, and this case has been going on since 2017
But why?
for trafficking
Okay.
this girl. And it's interesting because the survivor actually never gave up during the fight. She gave her evidence multiple times in multiple courts. And I think that kind of is really motivating to see them come up, because it's, for as lawyers, as third party people, it's very frustrating for us कि यार ये फिर से कोर्ट का डेट हो गया है, तारीख पे तारीख हुए जा रहा है, तारीख पे तारीख हुए जा रहा है. But when you see survivors themselves coming and saying, no, this is my case, what happened to me was very wrong, I am not going to give up the fight. I think when that happens, that kind of adds fuel to your fire to seek out justice, I think.
True. Right. And I think, so why did you choose specifically human trafficking? Like, why are you so much passionate about human trafficking in general?
Because I think human trafficking is one of the largest organized crimes in society today. There is still a lot of lack of ownership to recognize it as a serious offense from public stakeholders, from the public justice system. The numbers are alarming. There are a lot of cases, but conviction rates are very low. We are talking about a large number of young girls and even boys who are being forced into not only commercial sexual exploitation, but who are being forced into bonded labor, who are being trafficked from one place to another for various reasons. And we are still not looking at it as a serious kind of crime that is still occurring. It is a $1 billion industry. It's not like somebody's trafficking somebody and paying a hefty fine for it, or paying taxes for trafficking someone. And it's globally. During my time in London also, it's not just in India. I think globally also it is an issue where young boys, especially in London, in my experience, young boys were being trafficked for sexual exploitation. So not just in India, I think it's a global problem where children are exploited for the benefit of others. And I think that's an issue, and I think it's not spoken about.
Is there a victim, like, which is the youngest victim, like, you have come across, the age?
I think my youngest survivor would be about 6 or 7 years old.
6 years old. That's
6 or
so
7 years.
small. Like, and why was she trafficked?
I can't really remember whether it was a trafficking case or not, but I remember that it was a sexual violence case.
What?
So it was very disheartening. It was very heartbreaking, and those cases are particularly a bit difficult to handle as well.
Yeah, because I think you question altogether the human consciousness, that what could lead a person to do this to a child.
Yes, you have those battles. I think when you work in such a field, you have those battles. You question a lot. You question, why could this happen? But it also depends the perspective of what you look at it from. I also write a lot about mental health. I'm also a mental health activist. So I would also look at it from the perspective of, okay, there is something that is so ghastly that is happening.
जैसे कि आपने बोला कि human trafficking is a $1 billion company altogether. So आप मुझे बता सकती हैं कि ऐसा क्यों होता है इतना openly? Because नेताएं, there are like so many netas watching it, politicians watching it, policemen watching it, but why don't we see any action against it? And even if there are actions taken, why don't we see any visible change?
So let me begin by saying that it'll be completely unfair to say that there has been no action taken by the state government against it. There have been various schemes that have come up. For example, I believe that the Kanya Shri scheme by the state government to keep young girls in school, I think it's a wonderful scheme by our chief minister to give financial aid to young girls to keep them in school. There's minority schemes, there's all these public schemes to ensure that children don't drop out at school. Is it enough to stop trafficking? No. Is the level of response that we are looking for from the public justice system sufficient to combat human trafficking? I don't think so. For instance, we need a policy on safe migration. तो देखिए, कभी कभी होता है कि मैं अगर कैलकाटा में अगर कोई जॉब नहीं रहता, मैं बैंगलोर चली गई या मैं कहीं और चली गई, where does my consent end? When I go to Bangalore, right, to get a job. But just because I've gone from one place to another on the basis of a job offer, and मैं वहां जाके देखती हूँ कि कोई जॉब नहीं है, and my recruiter over there जाके बोलते हैं, ये now that you've come here, कोई जॉब नहीं है, आपको ये prostitution करना है. My consent ended the moment I went over there, the moment he told me I have to do prostitution, right?
Yes.
So we need policies for safe migration. The truth of the matter is we don't have adequate number of jobs here in West Bengal, which means that people will migrate. So when Amphan hit, and a lot of young girls were migrating from Sundarbans to different places, and still are migrating, and not even just young girls, even young boys were migrating for lack of sustainability, for the lack of better living options, because Amphan destroyed the whole of Sundarbans. तो उनके पास कोई चारा नहीं था but to move to other places, but they moved to get better jobs. They didn't move to
get trafficked.
Bombay, Goa, and all these places to work 7 days a week for 30 rupees a day.
Hmm.
So we need safe migration policies, which I think is lacking at the policy level. That's one. When it comes to the police, I do think there is some level of change amongst police, but see, I also believe that police is understaffed. एक तो भैया आप one police is made to do several duties. The same police who's investigating human trafficking cases is also doing law and order duty.
Hmm.
Is it possible for a police officer to investigate a crime such as human trafficking, which needs special investigation, to also do law and order duty and come back to that investigation, which requires a specialized kind of investigation? What happens in trafficking, by the definition of trafficking, is that whenever a person takes another person from point A to point B for the purposes of commercial sexual exploitation or beggary or slavery, right? So that requires not only tracing the source point from where the victim was trafficked, it requires tracing out financial transactions, it requires tracing out who were the traffickers. But all these require a lot of time and effort.
True.
So how is it possible for understaffed police or overworked police to do all of these XYZ duties?
Exactly.
So I do think there is lack of police personnel. I think we would be it would be a great disservice if we don't. I mean, all this good work, so many organizations, so many people in civil society are doing towards eliminating human trafficking, but there has to be some political will, some systematic will towards addressing these issues as well.
Yeah, and I also think that there could be like we can have like a special, cop which
Yeah, so
inspection
law
of-
provides for special police officers.
Mhm.
Under law, we have the Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act.
Hmm.
Under that act, we need to have a special police officer
Hmm.
who's not below the rank of an inspector to investigate these crimes. But again, we come back to the issue of, even if there is an inspector who's investigating a crime of human trafficking, that same inspector is also doing law and order duty.
Right.
So one police doing a 2 or 3 police person's job, it's not possible. It's not humanly possible to be absolutely correct.
So don't you think that it's high time that the government, that we should make a system where we have a special section of police that only look into human trafficking? Because as you said, it's the need of the hour, the change.
Yeah. So we do have, interestingly, we do have human trafficking cases cannot be investigated by the local police.
Hmm.
Human trafficking cases, by the judgment of the Honorable High Court at Calcutta in Sangeeta Sahu versus State of West Bengal, a directive was passed where human trafficking cases can only be investigated by anti-human trafficking units.
Hmm.
But there is a lack of awareness about this human trafficking case law, where people are not even aware that local police do not have the jurisdiction, that
do that.
special police officers are required to investigate this. Even now we are fighting.
Hmm.
Even this judgment was passed quite a number of years ago, but even in 2024 we are still fighting for cases to be investigated by AHTUs. And so we do have, the problem is not about having the laws or having systems in place or having directives in place. The problem is the implementation of it. The problem is the lack of manpower for the implementation of these laws and provisions.
All right. So now that we talked about police and politicians, your work specifically challenges the state. So, like, has it ever happened that you're getting like आपके ऊपर pressure पड़ रहा है politicians से या ऐसे police से, because you're going against the, not against, but you're basically holding the state accountable?
अभी तक तो नहीं हुआ है. Plus, I make it a point to put all my deadlift videos on my WhatsApp statuses. I can deadlift 100 kgs. So I think a lot of people see that and they just don't bother me.
Okay, so it was. Thank God. Let's just say that.
Yeah, but then you also learn how to be very careful. For example, I was attending a cyber crime workshop a few years ago. There are things that you deal with, like for example, leaving digital footprints.
Yeah.
For instance, if I'm traveling anywhere, I never say I'm traveling to a particular place. Um, uh, if I'm going somewhere out with my friends, my parents, or my brothers all know my live locations. If I'm traveling anywhere abroad, my parents, my brother, my extended family all know my passport number. They have an itinerary prepared. So you start learning to take these precautions, because the kind of work that you do is challenging, definitely. But again, what's life without a little bit of challenge as well?
So you're not scared?
No, of course not. I mean, you learn to be smart. It would be very overconfident of me to say that I'm not scared at all, that there are no challenges, there's no fear. Um, but you learn how to maneuver these challenges very smartly. Um, you learn how to keep things private. You learn how to keep your circle close. You keep your friend circle really tight. You don't leave digital footprints, kids. Please don't leave digital footprints on the internet. People can track it. Remove your geotag locations unless it's really important. Don't add random people you don't know to your Instagram and Facebook.
All right.
So these are a few tips that at least I follow. Don't give out your house address to anyone and everyone. So these are a few tips that you follow. But musibat to if it has to come, it'll come. Tab dekhenge.
So, Joanna, would you mind sharing with us one of the most inhuman cases you have come across?
So, if you go towards Digha and Mandarmani area, you'll see a lot of these highways with these buildings that have now been shut off, which used to be used as brothels earlier. Now I'm talking about a period which used to be before 2010. And there used to be girls as little as 12 who would be bound to the beds by chains and who would be sold to customers as little as 100 rupees per night. And the customers could vary from between 30 customers to night to about 50. And some of the cases that have come out from there are horrifying. Survivors were forced to take hormone pills. They were forced to take breast enhancement creams, fairness creams, and it was just horrifying to hear some of the stories that came out from there. There have also been stories that, the first time I met a survivor, I remember she had been trafficked by her own husband from Bangladesh into India. And she was so poor. She did not have even the basic knowledge that coming into India requires passport. Unka utna bhi knowledge nahi tha, So you have these... I think every case is horrifying in its nature, but I think some of these stand out because you can't map out trauma. Everyone's trauma will be different from everyone else's. But I think these are some of the cases that have actually created an effect on me, to think that somebody could be sold for as little as 100 rupees. 100 rupiya kya hi hota hai? 100 rupiya is nothing now.
True.
But somebody could be sold for as little as 100 rupees for more than 20 customers per night. So that, I think, is a very ghastly nature of the human side to even be aware of. So yeah, that does that used to happen. It still happens in many places now. I'm not sure if it's still only 100 rupees though.
But it's really sad because like when you live in Calcutta, you frequently go to Mandarmani and West Digha. But the fact that we never realized that something like this happened on the highways we go by. So it's kind of spine chilling to actually even think of the lives that these girls must have faced.
Yeah, and it's still in many areas there are still prevalent. There are stories that you get to hear sometimes from near the Bangladesh border as well, where you'll hear वो संडे में जो मार्केट्स बैठते हैं ना, तो वहाँ पे सुनने में आया है कि वहाँ पे बच्चियों को भी लेके आते हैं कि बेचने के लिए कि ये 2,000 रुपया, ये 3,000 रुपया. द यंगर द चाइल्ड इज, the more the money is,
Why?
the fairer the child is, or fairer the बच्ची is, और ज़्यादा पैसा उनके लिए. So there are incidents that you get to hear. Now, with regards to these hearts, I'm personally yet to see them. But there have been confirmed sources who have seen them with their own eyes, and have shared these stories. But again, it's not just limited to West Bengal, right?
हम्म.
It's all over if you go to see it.
तो आपने जैसे बताया कि ट्रैफिकिंग काफ़ी कॉमन है एंड हर जगह होता है. सो आपके हिसाब से विच इज़ दैट स्टेट, लाइक अकॉर्डिंग टू स्टैटिस्टिक और डेटा अवेलेबल ऑन द इंटरनेट, विच स्टेट इज द वन विच हैज़ द मैक्सिमम नंबर्स ऑफ विक्टिम्स और सर्वाइवर्स ऑफ.
So the data that is available on the internet would say that Maharashtra, UP, Delhi, and West Bengal are very high in incidents of human trafficking. But again, I wouldn't place much reliance on the data. अक्सर ये होता है क्या बच्चियाँ मिसिंग हो जाती है और they get trafficked. And when they return, police don't want to register it as a case of trafficking. पुलिस का कहना है कि अरे भाग के शादी कर चुकी है, अरे भाग के वहीं पे तो गई थी, वापस आ चुकी है. Because ऐसा भी होता है, survivors have been trafficked to Pune, have been sold off to Pune and Mumbai and Delhi, have somehow managed to flee and come back. And so when they come back, पुलिस बोलते हैं अरे इसमें मिसिंग कंप्लेन करने का क्या था, ये तो बच्ची वापस आ गई है, आप छोड़ दो. सो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ केसेस दैट गो अंडर रिपोर्टेड ऑल्सो. So if at all national data is saying that there are 10 cases of human trafficking, I would think that there are more. The last time there was NCRB data of 2018 or 19, it said that West Bengal had over 8,000 cases of human trafficking. Now, if you're talking about 8,000 cases of human trafficking reported, आप सोच सकते हो कि the number of cases
in reality
that are there. I think the number of late has considerably come down. But again, those are reported cases because reality is much more different. Police are very hesitant to report cases. They'll register it as a missing case या kidnapping का case कर देंगे या बोले भाग के शादी कर चुकी है तो case close को they'll just close the case, कोई difference नहीं होता है उनको. So that is the harsh reality of it. So I wouldn't place much reliance on the data, but of course I do think that it'll be more than what official numbers on the internet say.
So the same thing happens even in the international level. Like, do you think the numbers are manipulated or they go unreported or something?
I think at the foreign level, at the international level, I can talk about my experience in the UK and the US. Both in the UK and the US are a little more proactive towards the crime of human trafficking. Again, you have to see the difference between the two countries, right? Say, for example, if you compare US and India, US is already a developed country. They have more resources at their disposal. So if US says in a year there are 7,000 cases of human trafficking, they have the resources to deal with it. On the other hand, if India says that West Bengal में 8,000 cases of human trafficking hai, I don't think we are equipped with the resources to deal with 8,000 cases of human trafficking. So I do think that numbers abroad or internationally might be less manipulated than what is happening here.
That's a really sad reality.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, are there cases of cross-border trafficking?
I started 2018. I co-authored my first research book called Umeed. It is a statistical analysis of 50 convictions in sex trafficking cases across the state of West Bengal. We studied 23 cases in which different courts across various courts had reached convictions, had reached a conclusion. There were about 112 victims, 91 offenders who were arrested. And out of those 112 victims, we found that 15% were from Nepal, and 21% from Nepal and 15% were from Bangladesh. So there were, we are talking about a period between 2008 to 2018. So, over 10 years, we found that we studied a particular period in this case. And we found that at least 36%, that's quite a big number, 15 and 21, 36% of victims were foreign victims who were found in brothels in India. So there is a high, there used to be a high visibility or high rates of incidents of cross border trafficking.
Also, there's a I don't know, it's a rumor or something, but there's a saying that a lot of women from India traffic to Dubai and a lot of Middle Eastern countries. Like, is it true?
I do think it's true. I do think not just Dubai. When I was in the US, um, I heard I met some other anti-human trafficking experts who said that a lot of Indian women were being trafficked into New York for being engaged in hotel services, room keeping services, but upon reaching New York, their passports were seized. And then they were being forced into these parlors that used to, on the forefront, would operate as parlors, but, would uh, at the back operate as sex trafficking rackets. So it's not just Middle East. I think it's globally. There have been issues of Indian women found even in Hong Kong in commercial sexual exploitation situations. So I think Indian women are not just Indian women, but I think women from all over the world are susceptible to human trafficking as well.
So, what can one do when, found in such a situation where your passport is taken away? You can't go back to your own country, and
I I think first and foremost we need to kind of raise awareness about what human trafficking is. We need to have these conversations in the mainstream about what human trafficking looks like, because unless we have conversations, unless we are equipped with the knowledge, I think people get very carried away with uh,
mm,
at looking at opportunities, but how many of these opportunities are actual opportunities? And hence it brings me back to my main suggestion is that we need to have safer migration policies. If there are agencies or touts that are offering jobs, how many we need to have, ideally a safe migration policy. Now I'm talking at a policy level. A safe migration policy would ensure that these job agencies would be government registered. So
right.
anybody looking for a job would ideally go through a government registered agency, but since we don't have that, people look at jobs on the internet, jobs on Facebook, and then apply
Hmm.
through it, and then they find themselves in extremely vulnerable situations. And I think we need to start having these conversations. Unless we have these conversations, unless we raise awareness, unless we talk amongst our circles, like we are aaj hum log baat kar rahe hain, so everybody here in this room, you and I are going to go back, or the listeners are going to go back with thinking, ha theek hai, human trafficking, manav taskari bol ke cheez hoti hai.
Hmm.
But
ज़्यादा knowledge के साथ जो
zyada
है,
knowledge,
एक
yeah. But how many people in schools and colleges are aware of the fact that मानव तस्करी बोल के चीज होती है? How vulnerable am I? How vulnerable are my family members?
and I think we believe that it can't happen to you. It can't happen to me.
Yeah,
But I think it's a myth because it can happen to anyone, anywhere.
anyone, anywhere. It's again, it's not to inculcate a level of fear that any कि नहीं हो सकता है ये, like it's like not telling a child, when you're teaching a child to cross the road,
Hmm.
you tease a child to cross the road looking at both sides of the road. You don't say nahi aap nahi dekhne se you will meet with an accident. Yes, that's secondary, you will meet with an accident, but you don't drill it into the child's head nahi you will
Hmm.
die. You tease a child to be careful, because if beta aap nahi dekhoge to aisa ho sakta hai. Same with I think incidents of human trafficking, sexual violence. Beta, when you don't leave when you are careful, when you don't leave carbon footprints on the internet, when you are very well aware among uh, of your human rights, of where you're going, what you're doing, who your friends are. I am an elder sister to younger brothers, and my conversation with both of them is always, they think I'm an obsessive elder sister, but I always try to make it a point to ask where you are, what you're doing. Generally, out of concern, we've created a WhatsApp group
Group.
where anyone, whoever is there, and it's not for, what would they think, that it's not an elder sister syndrome. It's just because I want to know that my siblings are safe, my siblings want to know if I am safe. And I think we need to have these conversations more out in the open.
True. Completely agree. If we don't have conversations, we'll never will be aware. There are cases and footages available very much on the internet where we see small kids working in firecracker factories, and we all are very much aware that how hazardous the chemicals are, and these small kids are, are so much in contact with them. So why isn't the state government intervening in this altogether? And why are we not stopping this thing from happening? Because to me, from looking from afar, I feel that this thing can be prevented. But why is that when I open my internet, like when I open my Facebook, I come across a video where I see a child working in such a factory?
So I want to make something very clear here. When we talk about state responsibility and state accountability, there cannot be any fundamental rights without any fundamental duties. When I say that, I mean, while we're talking about the fundamental right to freedom, the fundamental right to move around freely, we also, as civil society, as members of society, we also have a duty on us. And by saying that, I mean, let us agree that the state government is failing to protect. So my question to you or to the listeners are, what are we doing when we are watching those videos?
That is so true. Yeah.
And why are we not taking any action? One of the things that I find as a lawyer, I find very, very and it gets on my nerves when I see people taking out angers on the internet.
Yeah, same. Keyboard warriors, we call them.
Keyboard warriors. That's an interesting term. How's you hiding behind a phone, or why hiding behind a phone, fighting behind a phone? What are you going to get out of it? आप जाके पुलिस स्टेशन में जाओ, आप कंप्लेन कर रहे हो, आप पुलिस स्टेशन नहीं ले रहा है, आप डीएम के पास जा रहे हो. Do you know who the DM is? But everybody knows what Kim Kardashian wore to the Met Gala.
Yeah, true.
Right?
And I think it's also because the youth or people who are using the internet, they're not aware of the mediums through which they can, help or report such a thing. Because what people, coming from like my perspective, is that people think that मैं पुलिस स्टेशन में जाऊंगा, कुछ होगा नहीं, इसके आगे जाऊंगा तो ये सिस्टम ही ऐसा है. We all blame the system. Which you very correctly address that it's basically somewhere or the others we are also at fault because we're not. But like again the question that how can we address these things correctly in the right legal way? What is the legal way to do that?
So for sure, so when we are saying the system is failing, let's also take into consideration that we are part of the system only.
Very true.
The public justice system consists of us. The public officials are there to ensure that our needs are met, that our issues are addressed. And so, for instance, अगर मैंने देखा कि हाँ यहाँ पे child labor का issue है, all of the sections that, for example, the Child Labor Prohibition Act, it's available online. आप जाके पढ़ो, आप जाके पुलिस के पास जाओ, आप कंप्लेंट लेटर नहीं लिखो, पुलिस नहीं लेती है, पुलिस के सुपरवाइजर को लिखो. If the cops refuse to take action, you can also file an FIR through the court. These are all the remedies that are available. If the court also refuses to take an FIR, you can go through an appellate court. If there is no response, you can go. There is a body called the State Commission for Child Rights, SCPCR, that is here in Salt Lake. आप उनको approach करो. It's very easy, for us to find fault in
In the
something
system.
else somebody else is not doing. ये नहीं आपका ड्यूटी है. है ड्यूटी, नहीं कर रहे, अब क्या?
It's up to us
It's
to
up
make
to
the
us also to
society
do
better.
something ना.
Yeah.
ठीक है, आप सोच लो कि नहीं कर रहे, what am I going to do? So having said that, like I said, it's not just, is the system, like I said a while before, is the system doing what it should be? I think at some levels the system is trying its best to address the issues, but you know, ताली एक हाथ से नहीं बजती है,
दोनों हाथ से
बजती है. We are sitting in our comfortable AC rooms or our couches and we are thinking नहीं पुलिस वाला, and we are going on a rant कि पुलिस वाला क्यों नहीं किया FIR
आपने
lodge.
क्यों नहीं किया?
आपने क्यों नहीं किया? आप तो शहरी करे जा रहे हो. You know, so that's, like you said, keyboard warriorism is not going to work, is not going to address
The real
issues. And coming back to the question, no, as per the laws of the land, children are banned from working in hazardous environments. So if there are incidents where people come across situations where they see children working in chemical factories or hazardous environment, please go to the nearest police station. Provisions are all available online. If the police refuse to take your complaint, please approach the State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights. Salt Lake mein body hai. They sit in Salt Lake. They're a very helpful commission. Please approach them. Give them a letter in writing. Please don't waste your time in only sharing the reels and putting it on your stories, because it's not going to be effective like that.
Also, if you come across something like this from a different state, because every state government, we have different laws for different state. So how do we address that then?
You can, of course, write. If I was in that place, I would have written to the State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights over there, or I would have sent an email to the police station over there asking them to look into this complaint. I would have found out who's a local lawyer over there. Like, again, coming from a legal field, it's easy for me to come up with these solutions, which I understand a lot of people don't want to do. फिर से क्यों हम लोग ये फंस जाएंगे? There is an attitude, there is a mental attitude कि हाँ एक बार पुलिस स्टेशन में जाएंगे तो फंस जाएंगे केस में, और चलते रहेगा केस में, 10 बार दौड़ना पड़ेगा,
कोर्ट को
लेके दौड़ना पड़ेगा. But then if you don't take those steps, and you don't have the right to crib कि नहीं child labor बंद नहीं हो रहा है.
So it's either you crib, if
you take action, you take affirmative action.
Yeah. Or don't crib at all. So, ma'am, what are the key factors that lead to human trafficking or child labor?
So there are multiple factors that will lead to cases of human trafficking. In Umeed, we discussed when we studied these 23 cases, as per the analysis of these 112 victims, we found that out of 112 victims, 79% of them were trafficked on the false promises of jobs. 5% was trafficked on the basis of marriage. Another 2% was trafficked on the basis of घुमाने लेके जाएंगे हम, and another 1 or 2% could not recollect as to why they were trafficked. There was abduction, drugging, and kidnapping in those cases. But we're looking at 79% of people looking for jobs, which brings back again at a policy level why we need to have safe migrations. Yeah, more jobs, more resources, more trainings. And it again goes back to a bit about, I think, the kind of trainings survivors receive, or the kind of trainings or vocational trainings that are available at grassroots levels. For example, ये बहुत देखे हम grassroots levels में baking classes बहुत होते हैं. Baking सिखाते, but baking is an expensive product. It's an expensive investment also.
Yeah.
एक केक 150 रुपया का है. एक गांव में खाने का नहीं है, वो 150 रुपया का केक कौन खरीदेगा?
सही बात है.
Right? That's a vocational training that is absolutely ill-suited for a person living at a grassroots level. On the other hand, farming. Now, of course, there have been a lot of changes right now. There are small loans available through different schemes where women can set up their own businesses and all of that. But I mean, we're living in 2023. Why can't that's a question that even I ask. Why can't we take computer trainings or technical trainings or vocational trainings to grassroots level?
True.
And so when young girls and boys at the grassroots level are trained, they don't have to look outside for jobs and put themselves in vulnerable situations.
Hmm.
They can look for jobs here in the state itself, that that they don't have to migrate and possibly be in a vulnerable situation.
Exactly. I think it's altogether again we are coming back to the same thing that
Yeah, we definitely, there is definitely lapses in policy. There is definitely lapse in a lot of political will,
hmm,
I would say, to ensure. There are steps taken. I don't think they are sufficient.
we need to do better.
We need to do better. Yeah.
मैम अब जब हमने बात कर ली पॉलिसीज़ को लेके आई थिंक एक सोसाइटी की भी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है ऑल टुगेदर उनके सर्वाइवर्स को लेके क्योंकि ऐसे बहुत सारे क्या है वैसे मैक्सिमम केसेस में ऐसा होता है कि जब सर्वाइवर इस सिचुएशन से लड़ के वापस अपने
Mhm.
अपने एनवायरनमेंट में जाता है पीपल डोंट एक्सेप्ट देम लाइक इवन देयर फैमिली मेम्बर्स डिनाई टू एक्सेप्ट देम सो on this like what is your take on this how should the survivor deal and because ऐसा होता है ना कि you fight this like you only address कि you fight a battle and then all of a sudden you think that you have won the battle and then all of a sudden you feel like there's no hope people are not accepting you they are looking at you with at the eye from the eyes of a victim so how do you deal with this kind of situation.
So I'm going to answer this from a very feminist point of view.
Hmm.
I think that it is high time we need to stop blaming women. I think it's very easy to character assassinate women कि हाँ ये औरत का ही गलती थी. And it goes back to pre-medieval times, no, where it was easy कि to crucify women. It was easy to call a woman a witch and burn her on this stake,
True.
right? But I think when we talk about survivors and their rehabilitation into mainstream society, I think problem wahan hoti hai na, when we start looking at them as helpless, as unke साथ सिर्फ बुरा हुआ है, which is why I was talking about the need to shift from this victim to survivor centric mentality. वो सिर्फ victim नहीं है. She has a whole life ahead of her. She is not just a bad incident that happened to her. Interestingly, I also think we have a lot of taboos around sex. So when we say the word sex, we immediately think bad.
True.
So when we say bad, we think what has happened to her is bad. Because we don't have these conversations. We don't have these conversations around sex. We don't have these conversations around sexual violence. We don't have conversations around consent. And all of these add up. And so it's easier. So, it's interesting because we read the headlines. Aap kisi bhi paper mein you read it. Today I was reading 8-year-old boy raped by a neighbor. Why don't we say that a 34-year-old man raped an 8-year-old boy?
Yeah.
Day before yesterday, there was a news link that says that, girl, sister, nun raped by nun raped by a man. Why don't we say that a 60-year-old man raped a nun? Why are we always saying that women are rape victims? Because हम लोग वो lens से देखने चाहते हैं. We as a society, we get off on looking at women as helpless. And so I think वो बेचारी, this attitude has been inculcated for a very, very, very long time. So it is difficult to kind of shed that whole attitude. We can't suddenly randomly start changing the whole society as a whole, but definitely we can start having conversations about consent, about sex, about bringing down these taboos that are there. Because unless we do so, we will constantly look at something as immoral.
True.
And we are a country of billions of people. We possibly can't be thinking that talking about sex is immoral.
Also,
So
India is a land of Kama Sutra.
yeah, and so the moment we say, we think, अरे हाँ उसके साथ गलत हुआ है, उसके साथ rape हुआ है, it happened without consent.
That is the problem.
That is the problem.
Right.
We're not talking about consent here.
We're
We are
talking
talking about something that is immoral. So immediately we equate sex with bad. So the girl is bad. And so she doesn't belong in society. And this comes from a society or comes from a village which has probably one family is having 8 children. Let's not pretend here that nothing happened.
Yeah.
So I think it is difficult. Like I said, we can't change the whole society, but I think we need to start. Number one, we need to start seeing them as survivors, as people with their own voices, as individuals with their own rights, and as passionate about their own cases. कुछ कभी-कभी होता है ना, we look at them as people who are so helpless, we forget that कि नहीं, उनके पास भी गला है.
They're beyond their traumas.
Yeah, they are beyond their traumas. Their trauma is legitimate, their fear is legitimate. But they are more than that.
More than that, yeah.
We need to start having conversations, some really honest conversations amongst ourselves, and of course we need to create some more awareness about human trafficking as a whole. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really feel that it's high time that we change the narrative than trying to change the society altogether. So thank you so much. It was so insightful and I had a pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure that our viewers must have had some really good food of thought to have for this thing.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much. As we come to the end of this episode, I'm sure we have a lot of food of thought and knowledge about human trafficking and sexual exploitation. As Joanna said, that it's up to us to be better individuals because we can't always blame the system and society. So when we go back home, let's do better together. Thank you so much.